Listen to me carefully, because what I am about to say is not ordinary encouragement, and it is not wishful thinking. This is a declaration that must awaken something deep inside your spirit. There comes a moment when God decides that the place you are in can no longer contain what He is about to do in your life. When that moment arrives, no force on earth can stop the shift. Walls that once felt permanent become temporary. Rooms that once felt sufficient begin to feel too small. You may still be sleeping in the same bed, opening the same door, and walking the same floor, but in the unseen realm, God has already marked you for movement. You are not staying where you are. You are moving from your house to a new house. And this transition is not just physical, it is spiritual, emotional, and prophetic. Many people think that a house is just bricks and cement, but God never sees it that way. To God, a house represents capacity. It represents the level at which you are able to receive, contain, and manage what He pours into your life. When God blesses a person beyond the capacity of their current house, tension begins to rise. That tension shows up as discomfort, restlessness, and a holy dissatisfaction that refuses to be silenced. You start to feel like you no longer belong where you are. The ceiling feels lower. The walls feel closer. Even though nothing has changed on the outside, everything has changed on the inside. This is not confusion. This is preparation. God does not relocate people suddenly without first relocating their mindset. There are seasons when God allows you to dwell in a limited space because limitation trains discipline. Small places teach stewardship. Tight environments reveal character. But there comes a time when staying small becomes disobedience. God never intended for you to outgrow your faith while remaining in the same space. When your prayers become bigger than your rooms and your vision becomes larger than your address, God begins to whisper about movement. That whisper may come through a burden, a dream, a persistent thought, or a quiet knowing that refuses to leave you. Do not ignore that whisper. God is not teasing you. He is alerting you. Some of you have been faithful in a house that no longer matches the level of responsibility God has placed on you. You have prayed there, you have cried there, you have endured there. That house has heard your lowest moments and your quietest prayers, but gratitude for the past must not become bondage to the past. God honors faithfulness, and one of the ways He honors it is by expanding territory. Expansion is not a luxury, it is a response to obedience. When God sees that you can be trusted with little, He prepares much. When He sees that you can manage small, He releases large. Movement is proof that God has taken notice of how you have lived where you are. Do not think for a moment that this transition is about pride or status. God does not move people to impress others. He moves them to position them. A new house is not about showing off. It is about standing where God can do more through you. The space you occupy determines the assignments you can carry. There are blessings God wants to release that cannot fit in your current environment. There are responsibilities He wants to entrust to you that require more room, more structure, and more stability. When God prepares a new house, He is preparing a new level of influence. You may be wondering why the process feels slow or why obstacles seem to rise just as you begin to believe. Understand this truth deeply. Resistance often confirms direction. When God is about to move you, the old place tries to hold you emotionally. Fear begins to speak. Logic begins to question. Comfort begins to negotiate. But God does not consult fear when He decides to elevate a life. He does not ask comfort for permission to bless. He moves according to His purpose. If you wait until everything feels safe, you will never move. Faith always steps out before certainty arrives. There are people listening to this who are still attached to their current house, not because it fits their future, but because it holds their memories. God honors memories, but He builds futures. You cannot live tomorrow in yesterday's space. What carried you through one season cannot contain what is coming next. God is not asking you to forget where you came from. He is asking you to trust where He is taking you. Every step of growth requires release. You cannot receive a new key while clinging to an old door. Some of you think you are waiting on resources, but in reality, resources are waiting on alignment. God does not pour abundance into misaligned vessels. He prepares the place before He releases the provision. That is why the idea of a new house keeps returning to your heart. God is shaping your expectation before He shapes your surroundings. Expectation is spiritual architecture. What you consistently expect, you subconsciously prepare for. When your expectation shifts, your decisions shift. When your decisions shift, your life follows. Do not underestimate the power of believing that change is possible. Many people remain in the same house for years, not because God has not spoken, but because they have normalized limitation. They have adjusted their faith to fit their surroundings instead of allowing their surroundings to change to fit their faith. God never intended for you to shrink your dreams to match your environment. He intended for your environment to expand to match your calling. The moment you stop accepting limitation as permanent is the moment movement becomes inevitable. There is a divine order in how God moves people. He first moves your heart, then your thinking, then your habits, and finally your location. If your heart resists change, your feet will never follow faith. That is why God often allows dissatisfaction to grow. It is not punishment, it is motivation. Dissatisfaction is the pressure that pushes you toward obedience. If you were completely comfortable, you would never move. God loves you too much to let you stay comfortable when He has called you higher. A new house also represents a new season of peace. Some of you have endured noise that God never intended you to live with permanently. You have tolerated stress because you thought it was normal. You have accepted chaos because you thought it was the price of survival. But God is a God of order, and when He moves you, He restores alignment. The environment you live in affects the atmosphere of your soul. God does not elevate people just to keep them burdened. He moves them so they can breathe again. Do not be afraid of the responsibility that comes with expansion. Every increase carries new expectations, but God never gives an assignment without also giving the grace to fulfill it. When He moves you into a new house, He also moves you into new strength. You are not the same person you were when you first entered your current place. You have grown, you have matured, you have learned. God has been preparing you quietly, patiently, intentionally. What once would have overwhelmed you will now refine you. There will always be voices that question your readiness. Some will say it is too soon, others will say it is too risky, but obedience is not measured by public approval, it is measured by private conviction. If God has settled it in your spirit, you do not need external permission. When God decides to move you, He makes a way where there was none. Doors open that logic cannot explain. Opportunities align in ways that cannot be forced. Provision appears not all at once, but always on time. Understand this clearly. Moving from your house to a new house is not about escape, it is about assignment. God does not relocate people to hide them. He relocates them to use them. Where you are going, your presence will matter. Your prayers will carry weight. Your obedience will create impact. God is positioning you so that what He has placed inside you can be released without restriction. You are not just changing addresses, you are changing levels. There may be moments when you feel unqualified, but qualification does not come from perfection, it comes from obedience. God does not who's people because they are ready. He prepares people because they are chosen. If you wait until you feel fully capable, you will miss the moment of faith. Faith does not wait for confidence, it creates confidence through action. Every step you take in obedience strengthens the ground beneath your feet. Your current house may have protected you during a vulnerable season, but protection must eventually give way to purpose. God never intended for you to live in survival mode forever. There is a time to be hidden, and there is a time to be revealed. When God moves you, He is signaling that the season of hiding has ended. He is calling you into visibility, responsibility, and fruitfulness. Do not resist that call. Some of you are worried about leaving familiarity. Familiarity feels safe, but it can also become a cage. God does not imprison His people in comfort. He invites them into growth. Growth always feels unfamiliar at first. It stretches what you know. It challenges what you assume. But every unfamiliar step taken in faith becomes familiar through experience. What feels intimidating today will feel natural tomorrow once you obey. When God moves you into a new house, He also moves old limitations out of your life. Cycles break, patterns change. What once drained you loses its grip. Environment shapes behavior more than most people realize. God understands this, which is why relocation is often a tool of transformation. He changes the environment to protect the future. You are not just moving to something bigger, you are moving to something healthier. Do not rush the process, but do not resist it either. God's timing is precise. Delay does not mean denial, and waiting does not mean stagnation. Sometimes God is aligning people, resources, and circumstances in ways you cannot see. Trust what He is doing behind the scenes. Your responsibility is not to figure out every detail, but to remain obedient to every instruction. Obedience unlocks clarity one step at a time. There is a reason this message resonates so deeply with you. It is because God has already begun the work. Seeds of movement have been planted in your spirit. Every time you imagine a new space, every time you feel peace, when you think about change, every time hope rises instead of fear, it is confirmation. God is not confusing you, He is calling you forward. A new house also symbolizes a renewed sense of dignity. Some of you have lived beneath the level of honor God intended for you, not because you lacked worth, but because you lacked revelation. When God moves you, He restores perspective. You begin to see yourself as He sees you. You begin to live with intention instead of apology. Expansion restores confidence, not arrogance, but quiet assurance that you are walking where God placed you. There will be moments when you must let go of things that cannot move with you. Not everyone and not everything belongs in the next season. This does not mean bitterness or resentment. It means discernment. God separates not to wound, but to protect. Carrying unnecessary weight will slow your progress. Trust God enough to release what He asks you to release. What remains will be what you need. As you prepare for this transition, guard your thoughts carefully. Fear often disguises itself as wisdom. Doubt often sounds like caution, but faith speaks with clarity, not confusion. If a thought drains your hope, it is not from God. God's direction may challenge you, but it will never leave you hopeless. Even when the path is unclear, peace remains. That peace is your anchor. The move you are about to make will not only change your surroundings, it will change how you pray. When your environment expands, your faith expands with it. You begin to pray from a place of gratitude instead of desperation. You begin to expect goodness instead of merely surviving difficulty. God wants you to live from overflow, not exhaustion. The new house is part of that restoration. Do not compare your journey to others. God moves each person according to their assignment. Some moves happen quickly, others take time. Speed is not the measure of success, obedience is. Stay focused on what God is saying to you. Comparison creates pressure that God never intended you to carry. Trust that your timing is intentional. When you finally step into the new place God has prepared, you will realize that every delay had a purpose. Every closed door protected you. Every season of waiting strengthened you. You will see that God was never late. He was always precise. And the gratitude that fills your heart will be deeper because you know what it took to get there. Remember this always. God does not move people randomly. He moves them strategically. Where you are going has been prepared with intention. The space will match the season. The environment will support the calling. The peace will confirm the obedience. And even when challenges arise, you will know you are exactly where God intended you to be. Stay faithful where you are until the move becomes clear. Do not despise the current hope. Honor it for what it gave you, but do not build your future there. For obedience in the present determines your access to the future. God watches how you handle what you have before He releases what you desire. This is a season of transition, not confusion. This is a season of alignment, not loss. You are not being uprooted, you are being replanted. And what God replants, He causes to flourish. Trust the process. Trust the timing. Trust the voice that keeps calling you forward. You will move from your house to a new house, not because you forced it, but because God ordained it. The shift will feel natural when it happens, even if it once felt impossible. And when you stand in that new place, you will understand that the move was never just about space, but about becoming who God always intended you to be and stepping fully into the life He prepared long before you ever thought change was possible. There is a sacred moment when God begins to loosen the ground beneath your feet, not to make you fall, but to make you walk. Stability is important, but stagnation is dangerous. God never anchors a life just to keep it still. He anchors it so it can move with confidence. When He prepares you for a new house, He is teaching you how to trust His guidance more than your familiarity. Faith is not proven by how long you stay where you are, but by how willingly you follow. When God says it is time to rise and go forward, understand this deeply. God is not reacting to your circumstances, He is orchestrating them. What looks like coincidence is often coordination. Conversations you did not plan. Ideas that arrive unexpectedly, opportunities that suddenly appear. These are signals, not accidents. God speaks through patterns before He speaks through outcomes. If you are paying attention, you will notice that everything around you has begun to point in the same direction. That is how God confirms His will. Not through pressure, but through alignment. Some people struggle at this stage because they confuse humility with hesitation. Humility is not refusing growth. Humility is obeying God without needing to understand everything. When God expands your life, He is not asking you to boast. He is asking you to believe. Belief is not arrogance. Belief is agreement with what God has already decided. To refuse movement out of fear is not caution. It is unbelief disguised as wisdom. There are seasons when God allows you to feel the weight of your current house so that you will appreciate the freedom of the next one. Pressure reveals capacity. If you were not ready, the pressure would crush you. But instead of crushing you, it has sharpened you. You are still standing. You are still believing. That alone is evidence that God has strengthened you for more. He would not stir your desire if He had no intention of fulfilling it. A new house also represents a new sound in your life. Old environments carry old voices, voices of limitation, doubt, and fear that repeat themselves until they feel true. When God moves you, He changes what you hear every day. He surrounds you with new language, new vision, and new expectation. Faith grows best in environments that echo possibility instead of limitation. God understands this, which is why relocation is sometimes the key to revelation. You must also recognize that God often uses movement to separate you from unnecessary saint. Struggle. Some battles persist, not because they are meant to refine you, but because you have outgrown the place where they exist. When God moves you, certain conflicts lose their power. Certain burdens fall away. Peace returns not because the world has changed, but because your position has changed. Position matters more than effort. Do not fear the unknown. The unknown is only unknown to you, not to God. He does not guide blindly. He sees the end from the beginning. The house He is leading you toward has already been accounted for in His plan. Its timing, its provision, its purpose, all of it has been considered. Your responsibility is not to see everything, but to trust the one who does. There is also a spiritual authority that comes with obedience. When you say yes to God's direction, even before the details are clear, something shifts within you. Confidence replaces anxiety. Peace replaces confusion. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, and expect differently. That internal shift often precedes the external move. God changes the person before He changes the place. Some of you have been praying for change, but God has been waiting for surrender. Prayer without obedience becomes noise. But prayer paired with action becomes power. When you align your steps with your prayers, heaven responds. God honors movement that is rooted in faith, not fear. Even small steps taken in obedience create momentum that nothing can stop. A new house also demands a new level of discipline. Expansion without discipline leads to disorder. God prepares you not only to receive more, but to manage more. That is why this season may feel demanding. God is refining your habits, sharpening your focus, and strengthening your character. He's not delaying the blessing, He is protecting it. What God gives must be sustained, not just celebrated. You may notice that your tolerance for distraction has decreased. What once entertained you now feels empty. What once satisfied you now feels insufficient. This is not loss, it is clarity. God is simplifying your life so that you can move forward without unnecessary weight. Simplicity creates speed. Focus creates direction. God removes excess so that purpose can stand clearly before you. Never forget that God is faithful to complete what He begins. He does not initiate movement and then abandon the process. Every step forward is supported by His presence. Even when you feel unsure, you are not unsupported. Faith is not the absence of questions. It is the decision to move forward despite them. God walks with those who trust Him enough to obey. The new house God is leading you to will require you to live with intention. You will no longer drift, you will decide. You will no longer react, you will respond. Expansion demands maturity. God does not elevate people who refuse responsibility, but He empowers those who embrace it with humility and faith. You are not being promoted beyond your ability. You are being promoted into your purpose. As this transition unfolds, guard your spirit from negativity. Not everyone will understand your obedience. Some will question your decisions because they cannot see what God has shown you. That is why faith must be personal before it becomes visible. You do not need approval to obey God. You need courage. And courage grows when you remember who called you. The move ahead is not about leaving something behind. It is about stepping into something prepared. God never calls you out without calling you into. What you release makes room for what He provides. Trust that what lies ahead carries greater peace, greater purpose, and greater alignment with His will. Remain sensitive to God's guidance. Sometimes the final step comes quietly, not with drama, but with certainty. You will simply know that it is time. When that moment arrives, do not hesitate. Obedience delayed is opportunity diminished. Move when God says move. Speak when God says speak. Act when God says act. Your life is not random. Your movement is not accidental. You are part of a divine design that unfolds one obedient step at a time. The house you are leaving served its purpose, but it is not your destination. God is leading you forward, upward, and deeper into the life He ordained for you. Let faith rise higher than fear. Let obedience speak louder than doubt. Let trust silence hesitation. The path ahead may stretch you, but it will not break you. God does not lead people into emptiness. He leads them into fulfillment. And as you continue this journey, you will discover that every step was guided, every moment was watched, and every transition was covered by the unwavering faithfulness of God. There is a deeper truth you must grasp in this season. Movement is not only about where you live, it's about how you live. God does not change locations just to impress the eyes. He changes locations to shape the soul. When He prepares you for a new house, He's also preparing you for a new way of thinking, a new way of responding, and a new level of accountability. The place you are going will require you to live with intention instead of impulse, with faith instead of fear, with discipline instead of delay. God is a God of order, and order always precedes increase. Chaos may be tolerated for a season, but it is never rewarded with expansion. That is why God has been teaching you to bring structure to your days, clarity to your decisions, and integrity to your actions. What feels like pressure is actually preparation. God is aligning your inner life with the outer blessing He intends to release. When the inner structure is ready, the outer shift follows naturally. There is also a truth many people overlook. God often moves people to protect what He has placed inside them. Not every environment is safe for growth. Some places drain vision, weaken resolve, and suffocate faith. God sees what you cannot see. He knows when an environment has reached this limit. When He calls you to move, it is not rejection of the past, but protection of the future. He is guarding what He has invested in you. As you listen to this, something within you recognizes that this is not just encouragement, it is confirmation. God confirms His word through resonance. When truth is spoken, it settles instead of agitates. You may feel challenged, but you also feel strengthened. That is how you know God is speaking to your spirit. He never drives His people with fear. He leads them with conviction. A new house also represents restored authority. Some of you have lived under circumstances that made you feel small, restricted, or powerless. But God never intended for you to live beneath what He called you to rule. When He moves you, He restores your sense of agency. You stop reacting to life and start directing it under His guidance. Authority returns when alignment is restored. God is also teaching you that provision follows obedience, not comfort. Many people wait for perfect conditions before they move, but faith moves before conditions improve. When you take a step in obedience, God meets you on the path. The resources you need are often released along the way, not all at once. This keeps your trust active and your dependence sincere. God desires partnership, not passivity. You must guard against the temptation to romanticize the past. Memory can distort reality. What once felt necessary may no longer be suitable. God allows you to remember so you can learn, not so you can remain. The past is a teacher, not a residence. Honor it, but do not live there. Your future requires forward movement. There is a courage rising in you that did not exist before. This courage is not loud, but it is steady. It does not boast, but it stands firm. This is the courage that comes from knowing God is guiding your steps. When courage replaces fear, decisions become clearer. When clarity arrives, movement becomes inevitable. God also reshapes your relationships during seasons of transition. Not everyone who walked with you can walk where you are going. This is not judgment, it is design. Different seasons require different alignments. God removes certain connections gently, not to isolate you, but to position you among those who will strengthen your faith and support your assignment. Trust His wisdom in this process. There is also a financial dimension to this shift, but it is not rooted in greed or excess. It is rooted in stewardship. God does not increase resources so they can be wasted. He increases them so they can be managed with wisdom and purpose. The new house represents trust. God is trusting you with more because you have proven faithful with less. Increase is a response to responsibility. Do not allow impatience to sabotage preparation. What God is building takes time because it is meant to last. Temporary blessings require little preparation, but lasting ones demand maturity. God is more concerned with sustainability than speed. He would rather arrive later with stability than earlier with collapse. Trust His pace. You may notice that your prayers have changed. You are no longer asking merely to survive. You are asking to align. This shift in prayer is significant. It means your faith has matured. You are no longer focused only on relief, but on purpose. God responds powerfully to prayers that seek alignment with His will. As this transition unfolds, remain grounded in gratitude. Gratitude keeps your heart open and your spirit humble. It reminds you that every step forward is grace, not entitlement. Gratitude protects you from pride and preserves your sensitivity to God's voice. When gratitude leads, obedience follows naturally. God is also teaching you to trust silence. Not every instruction comes with noise. Sometimes God speaks through peace, through stillness, through an unexplainable calm that settles over you when you consider the next step. Learn to honor that peace. It is often the clearest confirmation you will receive. The move ahead will stretch your faith, but it will also deepen it. Faith grows strongest when it is exercised, not when it is stored. Every step you take in trust strengthens your spiritual muscle. S. What once felt heavy becomes manageable. What once seemed impossible becomes familiar. Growth always follows obedience. Remember that God is not distant in this process. He is involved in every detail. He sees your questions, your hopes, your quiet moments of uncertainty, and still He leads you forward with patience and care. You are not alone in this transition. You are guided, protected, and prepared. As you continue to walk this path, let your heart remain teachable. Pride resists instruction, but humility receives guidance. God leads those who listen. Keep your spirit open. Keep your faith active. Keep your obedience ready. The shift you are experiencing is not temporary inspiration. It is lasting transformation. God is moving you from containment to expansion, from limitation to alignment, from endurance to purpose. And as you continue forward, you will find that every step is anchored in truth, every change is covered by grace, and every movement is unfolding exactly as God intended, according to a plan far greater than anything you could have imagined. There is another dimension of this movement that must be spoken with clarity and courage. God is not only changing where you live, He is changing how you see value. In the old place, you learn to survive. In the new place, you will learn to steward. Survival trains instinct, but stewardship trains wisdom. God is elevating you from reacting to circumstances into governing resources with discernment. This shift requires maturity of heart, because what God entrusts next will require decisions that affect not only you, but others connected to your life. You must understand that God measures readiness differently. Why than people do? People look at appearance, numbers, and speed. God looks at obedience, consistency, and reverence. He watches how you handle quiet moments, unseen choices, and delayed answers. When God decides to move you, it is because He has already tested you in ways no one else noticed. The promotion you are stepping into has been earned through faithfulness when applause was absent. There is also refinement happening in how you listen. God is sharpening your discernment so that you can distinguish between urgency and importance. Not every open door is your door. Not every opportunity is assignment. The new season demands that you move with precision, not impulse. God is teaching you to pause, to weigh, and to seek His direction before acting. This kind of listening protects you from costly mistakes and preserves your peace. As God prepares you for this new house, He is also dismantling false urgency. Some of you felt rushed in the past, driven by fear of missing out or pressure to prove something. But God does not rush what He establishes. He moves with authority, not anxiety. When you follow God's timing, you move with confidence, not desperation. That confidence will mark this transition. There is a sacred confidence that comes when you know God is the source of your elevation. You stop striving to be seen because you know you are already known. You stop competing because you understand that purpose cannot be stolen. This inner security is essential for the place God is leading you to. Without it, expansion becomes exhausting. With it, expansion becomes natural. God is also teaching you how to release control. Control is often born from fear, but trust is born from relationship. God is inviting you to trust Him beyond what you can calculate. He is asking you to believe that His wisdom surpasses your planning. This does not mean abandoning responsibility. It means surrendering outcomes. You do your part faithfully, and you trust God with the results. The new house symbolizes a deeper rest, not the absence of work, but the presence of peace. God never intended for progress to cost you your soul. He never designed success to drain your joy. When He leads you into a new place, He restores balance. You work with purpose, but you rest with assurance. This balance is a sign of alignment. Some of you have been carrying guilt for wanting more, as if desiring expansion means you are ungrateful. But God placed that desire within you. Holy desire is not greed, it is alignment with purpose. God expands those who are willing to use increase for good. Desire guided by faith becomes vision. Vision guided by obedience becomes reality. There is also a call to integrity in this season. Increase magnifies what already exists. If character is weak, expansion exposes it. But if integrity is strong, expansion strengthens it further. God has been building your character quietly so that when the spotlight widens, you remain grounded. Integrity is what allows you to stand tall without falling inward. God is also reshaping how you respond to pressure. In the past, pressure may have made you anxious or reactive. But now, pressure is teaching you to seek God more deeply. Pressure becomes a signal, not a threat. It reminds you to pause, to listen, and to trust. This transformed response is evidence of growth. As you move closer to this transition, you may sense a narrowing of focus. Distractions lose their appeal. Noise becomes uncomfortable. This is God refining your attention. Focus is not restriction, it is protection. When God sharpens your focus, He is guarding your energy for what truly matters in the next season. The house you are moving toward is connected to purpose, not convenience. It will require intentional living. You will choose meaning over comfort, alignment over ease, but in that choice, you will find fulfillment that comfort could never provide. God always rewards those who prioritize purpose with lasting peace. You are also learning that faith is not emotional intensity, it is consistent obedience. Some days you will feel inspired, other days you will simply be faithful. Both are necessary. God values consistency more than excitement. The quiet days of obedience are just as powerful as the moments of bold declaration. God is preparing you to carry testimony, not just blessing. Where you are going, your life will speak. Your journey will encourage others. Your obedience will give courage to those who are afraid to move. God often elevates people so that their lives become messages of hope without words. As this movement unfolds, remain anchored in humility. Humility keeps your heart soft and your spirit teachable. It allows God to correct you without resistance and guide you without delay. Humility does not weaken authority, it strengthens it by keeping it aligned with God's will. There is a quiet strength forming in you, a strength that does not need to announce itself. This strength comes from knowing that God is with you, guiding you and sustaining you. It allows you to move forward without needing constant reassurance, because trust has replaced uncertainty. The season ahead will reveal how much you have grown. You will handle situations differently. You will speak with wisdom instead of impulse. You will respond with peace instead of panic. These changes are signs that the transition is already happening within you, even before it becomes visible around you. God is faithful to guide every step, to correct every misalignment, and to sustain every obedient heart. As you continue to walk forward, the path may not reveal itself all at once, but each step will be firm, each direction will carry peace, and each movement will continue unfolding under the steady, intentional guidance of God as He leads you onward into what has been prepared for you beyond where you have been, and into a space where your faith, your purpose, and your life continue to expand under His hand and according to His will, without haste, without fear, and without turning back as the journey continues to open before you. There is a refining fire in this season, but it is not meant to consume you, it is meant to clarify you. God often allows intensity to rise just before transition, because intensity reveals what is essential and what is excess. Under pressure, the unnecessary falls away, and what remains is what God intends to carry forward. This is not a season to cling to everything you know, but to discern what truly belongs in the future He is shaping for you. God is also teaching you the difference between motion and progress. Many people stay busy, yet remain stagnant. Activity without direction leads to exhaustion, but movement guided by God leads to fulfillment. As He prepares you for a new house, He is sharpening your sense of direction. You are learning to say no to what drains you, so you can say yes to what develops you. Focus is becoming your strength. There is a quiet authority emerging in your voice. You may not notice it fully yet, but others do. Authority does not come from volume, it comes from alignment. When your words align with God's truth and your life reflects obedience, your presence carries weight. This authority will be needed where you are going. God does not move people into greater space without also strengthening their influence. You must also understand that God honors perseverance. The delays you endured were not wasted. Every moment you remained faithful when progress seemed slow built endurance within you. Endurance produces stability, and stability is required for expansion. God does not build on shaky foundations. He builds on lives that have proven they can stand under pressure without losing integrity. There is also a shift happening in how you define success. In earlier seasons, success may have meant relief or escape. Now, success means alignment and fruitfulness. God is lifting your vision from short-term gain to long-term purpose. He is teaching you to value what lasts, not just what satisfies quickly. This shift in values prepares you for the responsibilities ahead. God is also reminding you that obedience is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet consistency. Sometimes it is choosing patience over reaction, wisdom over impulse, trust over control. These quiet choices shape your future more than bold declarations ever could. God watches the small decisions closely because they reveal the true posture of the heart. As you prepare to move, you may feel moments of vulnerability. Vulnerability is not weakness, it is openness to growth. God works powerfully in hearts that remain open to correction and guidance. Pride closes doors, but humility opens paths. Staying teachable will keep you responsive to God's leading, even when the way forward requires adjustment. There is also an invitation in this season to deepen your inner life. External expansion without internal depth leads to imbalance. God is drawing you inward so He can strengthen you at the core. When your inner life is grounded, external changes do not shake you. You remain steady, clear, and anchored no matter where you are placed. God is also restoring joy in unexpected ways. Joy does not always come from resolution. Sometimes it comes from assurance. Knowing that God is guiding you brings a quiet joy that does not depend on circumstances. This joy becomes fuel. It sustains you when the journey feels long and reminds you why obedience matters. Do not underestimate the power of patience guided by faith. Patience is not passivity, it is active trust. While you wait, God works. While you prepare, God aligns. While you obey, God advances His plan. Nothing in this season is idle. Everything is contributing to the outcome He has ordained. You are also learning to release comparison. Comparison clouds vision and weakens gratitude. God has designed your path uniquely. What He is doing in your life cannot be measured against another's timeline. When you focus on His direction instead of others' progress, clarity returns and peace is restored. God is preparing you to carry responsibility without resentment. Some people resist growth because they associate responsibility with burden, but responsibility guided by purpose becomes meaningful. God entrusts responsibility to those who understand that serving a greater purpose brings fulfillment, not frustration. As the transition draws closer, your discernment sharpens. You sense when to speak and when to remain silent. You recognize what aligns with God's will and what distracts from it. This discernment is a gift, and it will protect you in the next season. Trust it. God has trained your spirit to recognize His guidance. There is also a strengthening of resilience taking place. Resilience is not hardness, it is flexibility rooted in faith. You bend without breaking. You adapt without losing identity. God is equipping you to navigate change with grace, not resistance. This resilience ensures that growth does not overwhelm you. God is faithful to complete what He has started. He does not abandon His work midway. Even when progress seems slow, His purpose continues steadily. Every step forward, no matter how small, matters. Every act of obedience carries weight in the unseen realm. The house you are moving toward represents not just a change of place, but a declaration that growth is permitted, that expansion is allowed, and that purpose is unfolding. God is affirming that you are not meant to remain where you were. He is inviting you to step into what He has prepared with confidence, rooted in trust, with courage strengthened by faith, and with a heart fully surrendered to His guidance as the journey continues to unfold step by step under His watchful care and you unwavering direction. Now let this truth settle deep within you, not as emotion that fades, but as conviction that anchors your soul. God has not brought you this far to abandon you in transition. He has not stirred your heart without preparing the ground ahead. Every step you have taken, every season you have endured, every quiet act of obedience has been seen. God is faithful, and His faithfulness is not fragile. It does not depend on circumstances. It stands firm even when everything else feels uncertain. This is the moment to look honestly at your life and ask whether you are living where God has placed you or hiding where you feel safe. Comfort can become a substitute for obedience if you are not careful. God is calling you to rise, not in pride, but in purpose. To rise in faith, not fear. To rise with courage that comes from knowing your life is held by His hand. Do not ignore the stirring within you. That stirring is not restlessness, it is invitation. Choose today to trust God beyond what you can see. Release the habits, thoughts, and fears that no longer serve His purpose in your life. Let go of the versions of yourself that were built for survival and step into the version shaped for calling. God does not ask you to move alone. He asks you to move with Him. When you surrender your direction, He provides clarity. When you surrender control, He releases peace. Walk forward with humility, but do not walk timidly. God has not shaped you through struggle just to leave you uncertain. He has refined you so that you can stand with quiet confidence, knowing that every step taken in obedience carries weight and meaning. Let your life reflect trust. Let your decisions reflect faith. Let your heart remain soft, teachable, and anchored in gratitude. Remember that where you are going is not defined by walls or space, but by alignment with God's will. A new house is not simply a destination, it is a declaration that growth is allowed, that obedience is rewarded, and that faith leads somewhere real. Carry this truth with you. When God leads, He sustains. When God calls, He equips. When God moves you, He goes before you. So rise with courage, move with faith, live with purpose. Let your life become a quiet testimony of trust, obedience, and hope, rooted firmly in God. And as you walk forward, may your steps be steady, your heart be at peace, and your spirit remain fully surrendered to God, who guides, strengthens, and establishes all who place their trust in Him.